Welcome back to NewsMakers on Christmas Eve. We are with Coen Lammers, Sheryl Sutherland and Ross Gumbley. Well, the best and worst of 2010. It's been a most unusual year. Probably not many years have been quite like 2010. Certainly not in my lifetime, and probably not yours either. There are obvious things that stand out, but before we get to September 4, what do you remember pre-September 4 of note? What are the indelible moments from 2010 before we get to September 4?
Yeah, it seems to be a bit of a watershed moment, wasn't it? The only thing that really stands out for me, because I was lucky enough to be there, was the football. The All Whites in South Africa, and especially that 94th minute goal by Winston Reid against Slovakia, that first draw at a World Cup.
Yes.
I mean, the whole nation just formed. You could almost feel it in South Africa, the whole of New Zealand just erupted.
Yeah.
And it was it was such a heart-lifting moment. And yeah, that's right up there for me.
Have you got over the loss for the Dutch nation in the final?
Oh, no, I've been here too long now. Actually, it was very interesting. I watched a couple of Holland games and I was far more emotionally involved with the All Whites games than with the Dutch games, because you know the players personally, so that's cool. It's very interesting, yeah.
And we went through that tournament unbeaten.
Only team.
Only team. Fantastic. Pre-September 4, Sheryl, what stands out?
What stands out? Well, I went to Swan Lake on ice, very reluctantly, I have to say. But after I saw those beautiful boys in tight gold tights, I popped out next day and bought myself a pair of opera glasses. So that was definitely a standout moment for me.
Ross, can you beat that for me, please?
No, I can't. No, just move on. The thing that stands out for me before the earthquake was just the sort of the anonymous nature of the year, and it was sort of like it took forever for this year to get going. It just didn't feel like it dropped into gear, and it took something alarming before we all took stock.
Yeah. September 4 and the 3.5 months since September 4. Do you think this is the worst natural disaster we will be faced with in our lifetimes, or do you fret about the Alpine fault?
I hope it's the biggest one we ever have to deal with here. No, I think if you start freaking out about the Alpine fault, then you wouldn't leave your house or never go inside your house anymore.
Some people seem paranoid about it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I think given what we've been through, fretting about what may or may not happen in the future, and this is what I tell clients all the time, actually, really just isn't useful.
That's very helpful advice.
Good.
Was that free and complimentary on Christmas Eve?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Who has entertained you the most in 2010, Mr. Gumbley?
Well, I've got to say, I think we're going through a renaissance at the moment. I think we're going through a golden age. And the trouble with the golden age is you never know whether you're in it until you're out of it. But I think we're in a golden age of New Zealand writing for the stage. And so a writer like Dean Parker sums it up for me, who has written such prolific work for the stage, and we have his new premiere coming up in the beginning of the new year, Midnight in Moscow. Fantastic writer. But people like Roger Hall seem to be on the top of their game. They're more popular than ever. And I think there's a real ownership of New Zealand writing. We certainly find that it works really well for us. We put on a balanced season of international work, but it's the New Zealand work which we're finding the most exciting and the most attractive to an audience.
Were we shafted by Warner Brothers?
Yeah, well, when we come to my pick for, a lump of coal in the stocking of certain people, I think it's got to be I think the whole Hobbit debacle was way greyer than black and white. Sean Astin, who was in the first film, Fellowship of the Ring and The Lord of the Rings, referred to New Zealanders working on it as Mexicans with cell phones. That's the way that they were being treated and the way they were being viewed. And so I think the union had a position, but my lump of coal goes to the MEAA and the way that they played this. The Australian Union came in with no room for manoeuvre, went too hard, didn't have an exit strategy, and make a complete arse of themselves. And so I think it's a far from clear issue, but I think they handled it appallingly.
Who deserves a lump of coal for you, Sheryl?
Well, Mark Hotchins, I should say, is a representative of all those damned financiers who have sucked money out from mum and dad investors and are now sitting pretty. I see that he now no longer can live on the $1,000 he was awarded by court. He wants $6,700 a week. That will go a long way, I'm thinking, towards helping rebate the money that he's taken away from the so-called investors.
Yes, and a couple of 5-star finance fellas are off to jail this week as well.
Yes, thank goodness.
Very nice.
There's hopefully a few more heads to roll.
Exactly.
Looking forward to it.
Lump of coal for you, Coen. Who deserves it?
Well, off the top of my head, I think the Australian journalist at Pike River, who is challenging Gary Knowles and tried to compare the rescue workers and the police and the firemen waiting outside the mine with the firemen outside the World Trade Center at 9/11, which was just absolutely ludicrous. And obviously, unfortunately, Knowles was proven to be right with his decision to hold back. And but that Australian, journalist, I don't think is the toast of the town in Greymouth.
That's true. I've got 30 seconds left. Very quickly, New Zealander of the Year. This has been the poll on the show for the last week, and we'll reveal the top contenders in a moment. For you, what name comes to mind?
Well, I don't think it is. I thought long and hard about this, and I think it's all New Zealanders that were brought together through the tragedy that we've seen this year. It's a year that's been dominated by two numbers, 7.1 and 29, and the way that the communities have risen to those, I think, makes the people who live next door to you and your family New Zealanders of the Year.
All right. I'll hustle on to the pick of the week, and a name that will be immortalised from 2010 is Julian Assange. But look at this. Were these two separated at birth? Are you free, Mr. Humphreys? Isn't that scary? Now, who was your New Zealander of the Year? Some of the top contenders that came through from your votes. Martin Snedden. Interesting. Jock Hobbs. Very poignant. Tony Cockshaw, Peter Whittle, but you gave it to John Key. John Key as New Zealander of the Year. The prize winner, by the way, H. Toombs. Thank you very much to our very festive elves for joining us before Santa's big journey tonight. Ross Gumbley, Sheryl Sutherland and Coen Lammers, a very Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
You have a very Merry Christmas, and we'll catch up in 2011. Quake free. Enjoy your holidays. Good night.